Good day. We are second-year students of Bachelor of Science in Accountancy of Xavier University at Ateneo de Cagayan. Today, we will be discussing few topics in relation to the corporate world. First off, let us first define what a corporation is. So a corporation is a legal form of business that is separate and distinct from its owners. Within the context of Philippine law, there are four attributes of a corporation. So a corporation is treated as an artificial being created by operation of law, having the right of succession and the powers, attributes, and properties expressly authorized by law are incident to its existence. As mentioned earlier, there are four attributes of a corporation. Let's go on through these attributes one by one. First is, it is an artificial being. An artificial being is an entity that is recognized by the law as a legal person or a body holding legal rights and duties distinct from the individuals who comprise it. Being separate from its owners, a corporation can sue and be sued as well as hold property in its name. Second, it is created by operation of law. It cannot come into existence by mere agreement of the parties, as in the case of business partnerships. Corporations require exclusive authority or grant from the state, either by a special incorporation law that directly creates the corporation or through general corporation law. Third attribute is that it enjoys the right of succession. A corporation has the capacity of continued existence subject to the period stated in the Articles of Incorporation. The death, withdrawal, insolvency, or incapacity of the individual shareholders or members will not dissolve the corporation. Last but not the least, it has the power, attributes, and properties expressly authorized by law or incident to its existence. This means that a corporation, being a mere creature of law, has such powers only as are expressly or impliedly conferred upon it by the Articles of Incorporation. What comprises a corporation? A corporation is comprised by stakeholders. These are any individual or group or party that has an interest in any organization and the outcomes of its action. It can also affect or be affected by the organization's actions, objectives, and policies. You might be wondering who these stakeholders really are, or specifically are. So these stakeholders are the customers, employees, investors, owners, suppliers, creditors, communities, and government agencies. In order for a corporation or any businesses to function well, it needs to have good governance. Governance is the manner in which power is exercised in the management of a business's economic and social resources for development and growth. So, in other words, governance is the establishment of policies and continuous monitoring of their proper implementation by the members of the governing body of an organization. It includes the mechanisms required to balance the powers of members and their primary duty of enhancing the prosperity and viability of the organization. There are 8 characteristics of good governance, so let's go over these characteristics and discuss each of them. First is rule of law. Good governance requires fair legal frameworks that are enforced by an impartial regulatory body for the full protection of stakeholders. Second is transparency. It means that information should be provided in easily understandable forms and media, that it should be freely available and directly accessible to those who will be affected by government policies and practices, as well as the outcomes resulting from it, and that any decisions that are taken and their enforcement are in compliance with established rules and regulations. Next is responsiveness. Good governance requires that organization and their processes be designed to serve the best interests of stakeholders within a reasonable time frame. fourth characteristic is the consensus-oriented. So good governance requires consultation to understand the different interests of stakeholders to reach a broad consensus of what is in the best interest of the entire stakeholder group and how this can be achieved sustainably and prudently. Next is equity and inclusiveness. The organization that provides the opportunity for its stakeholders to maintain, enhance, or generally improve their well-being offers the most compelling message regarding its reason for existence and value to society. Sixth is effectiveness and efficiency. Good governance means that the processes implemented by the organization to produce favorable results meet the needs of its stakeholders while making the best use of resources, human, technological, financial, natural, and environmental, at its disposal. Seventh is accountability. Accountability is a crucial tenet of good governance. Whoever is accountable for what should be documented in policy statements. In general, an organization is accountable to those who will be affected by its decisions or actions as well as the applicable rules of law. Lastly, participation. Participation by both men and women, either directly or through legitimate representatives, is a crucial cornerstone of good governance. Participation needs to be informed and organized, including freedom of expression and attentive concern for the best interests of the organization and society in general. There is a certain governance in the corporate world. We call it corporate governance. Corporate governance is the system of rules, practices, and processes by which business corporations are directed and controlled. Corporate governance mainly involves balancing the interests of a company's many stakeholders, such as shareholders, senior management executives, customers, suppliers, financiers, the government, and the community. Since corporate governance also provides a framework for attaining a company's objectives, it encompasses practically every sphere of management, from action plans and internal controls to performance measures and corporate disclosures. There are 4 P's of corporate governance. These are people, purpose, process, and performance. What is the purpose of corporate governance? The purpose of corporate governance is to facilitate effective, entrepreneurial, and prudent management that can deliver the long-term success of the company. It also aims to help build an environment of trust, transparency, and accountability necessary for fostering long-term investment, financial stability, and business integrity, thereby supporting more substantial growth and more inclusive societies. It also enhances shareholders' value and protects the interests of other stakeholders by improving corporate performance and accountability. It is about what the board of directors of a company does, how it sets the values of the business firm. There are 4 basic objectives of corporate governance: fair and equitable treatment of shareholders, self-assessment, increased shareholders' wealth, and transparency and full disclosure. First is fair and equitable treatment of shareholders. A corporate governance structure ensures equitable treatment of all the shareholders of the company. All shareholders deserve equitable treatment, and this equity is ensured by a good governance structure in any organization. Second is self-assessment. Corporate governance allows firms to assess their behavior and actions before regulatory agencies scrutinize them. Firms with a robust corporate governance systems are better able to limit their exposure to regulatory risks and fines. An active and independent board can successfully point out the loopholes in the company operations and help solve issues internally. Third is, it increases shareholders' wealth. The main objective of corporate governance is to protect the long-term interests of the shareholders. Firms with stable corporate governance structures are seen to have higher valuation premiums attached to their shares. This shows that the market perceives good corporate governance as an incentive for the shareholders to invest in the company. Last but not least, transparency and full disclosure. Good corporate governance aims to ensuring a higher degree of transparency in an organization by encouraging full disclosure of transactions in the company accounts. Full disclosure includes compliance with regulations and disclosing any information relevant to the shareholders. Transparency involves the disclosure of all forms of conflict of interests. The basic principles of good and effective corporate governance includes transparency and full disclosure, accountability, and corporate control. What does good governance promote? Good governance sets the normative standards of development. It fosters participation, ensures transparency, demands accountability, promotes efficiency, and upholds the rule of law in economic, political, and administrative institutions and processes. There are plenty of benefits of good governance, and these are as follows. The essence of any system of good corporate governance is that it allows the board and management the freedom to drive their organization forward and to exercise that freedom within a framework of effective accountability.